All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Doppler's Gear Garage. And Brenton, top of the evening. Let's bring that down a little bit. Over there in Australia, I understand you had an awesome gig this week. Congratulations. Mark, hello. Well, I appreciate your stopping by and saying hello. Before you say goodbye. How is the fendering coming along? All right, so I've got a bunch of things I want to talk about, but I also want to make sure that we start off by, first of all, saying my name is Doug, in case we haven't met yet. Doug Doppler, this is Doppler's Gear Garage. We talk about gear, we talk about guitars, we talk about technique, we talk about, today, one of the topics is going to be note names and scale degree numbers, something that's a little bit mysterious. I am in the midst of developing a course curriculum for a pentatonic course, and in the midst of this, I'm trying to wrestle, I don't know why I'm using a fishing line and a kind of a lasso, but wrestle this whole concept of being able to take not just shapes, not just note names, not just scale degree numbers, but kind of put together the whole thing, well, kind of lasso and wrestle and reel in kind of all the things that make the pentatonic. What it is. Chris Alexander, hey, I thought you were playing hooky today, buddy. Thanks for popping in with your questions yesterday, and thank you for saying hi. Great to see you, my friend. Have a great, you're at a dive meet, is that correct? Wait. Beat you to it. All right. So, in any case, so, you know, the whole thing is that there is a Tim Pierce video that I actually haven't watched it, but it's high on my must-watch list, where he talks about, and I've talked about this here before, but looking at the neck and kind of what do quote-unquote pros see. And the thing is as a pentatologist, I'm big on understanding not just kind of like, hey, here's the shape, right? But what's happening, you know, if you will, under the hood? That is to say, you know, for many of us, myself being at the top of the list, I kind of drive my car into the station, I fill it up with gas. When it comes to all the under the hood stuff, I leave it to somebody else. And for many of us, the way we were taught the pentatonic, and we kind of learned to put the first finger at the appropriate note on a low E string, and that's kind of about all we knew. And so as an end result, kind of like, that becomes a strategy, or if you will, lack thereof, for negotiating. Hang on a second. Mark, all right, the DiMarzio JB is in the saddle, was a game changer. Okay, wait a second. So, DiMarzio JB, hang on, I'm going to switch glasses real quick here. I'm going to put on these guys. There we go. DiMarzio JB. So when I think of JB, I think of Jeff Beck. When I think of Jeff Beck, I think of the Duncan. So you're mixing your pickup metaphors there in my world. So best of both worlds, now using the EVH 5153 100 watt head. Sweet setup. Anything you play through, my friend, would sound sweet. You got the touch. All right. So the deal is, this whole pentatonic business is indicative of how many of us kind of go through the tunnel of guitar life, if you will. We just kind of, they march us out, they give us a guitar, and they go, here's the pattern number one in the minor pentatonic. You know, you just start here and, well, have at it, thanks, see you next week, right? And there's not usually a lot of explanation about what's going on. So as I'm kind of getting under the hood with this thing, I'm trying to imagine being, you know, kind of a beginner or an intermediate player, starting kind of without having really any reference point. Where do note names and scale degree numbers matter in the framework of the pentatonic? And where do they matter in the larger picture of, you know, working with stuff like that? So, as I've mentioned previously, that was intended to be a fragment of the G major scale there, by the way, whose notes are G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. So why it's helpful to actually know the note names, they become a roadmap on the neck, right? If you can find them, you can play them. And if I can find them on one string, there we go. I was like, you were messing with my cognitive skills there. We were having a what do you call it when two seniors have a moment? It was a junior moment. Now I moved into the key of D, as in D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. Probably a little hot here. Let's try that again. D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D, as in. And being able to know that that is D hold to E, hold to F sharp, F to G, hold to A, hold to B, hold to C sharp, F to D, means that we know that it's D hold to E, hold to F sharp, so on and so forth. So we understand the fundamental framework of what's happening in the background. And as, hey, Nandini, you here today? The middle pickup is sounding awfully nice. So as you begin to map these shapes, if you can actually kind of understand what's happening in the background, it makes it a lot easier to know how to apply them and kind of where to place them. That is to say, if we were taking, I started off in the key of G major, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, and then I jumped over to D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. And if I continue on the D major scale from its D, E, F sharp, G note, G, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B. There I'm literally just connecting D, E, F sharp, G, A, B. E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D, G, A, B, C sharp, D, E, A, B, C, D, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp. I'm seeing Tony and I'm trying to think of the note names at the same time. B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G, and F, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G, A, and then D, E, F sharp, G, A, B. And that, once you actually know why those shapes are played as they are, you have a level of connection to them. And you can begin to get playful with them. Instead of just going up or down, I should say that's up and down. Or down and up. You really have kind of a sense of kind of where you're at. And it means that you have the freedom, knowing if this top sequence right here, I should say top note of that first sequence is a B, and the next note is going to be a C sharp, and that's a D. Sorry, that's an E. Top note is a B. That means it's going to move up to a C sharp. That's an E, so that means it's going to be an F sharp. That's a D, so that's an E. That's a G, so that's going to be an A. That's an F sharp, so it's going to be G. That is feels like a B. And that's the C sharp. And that's going to be the B. And so it gives you... That's right. A comfort in knowing, not just kind of like, hey, I know how to connect these shapes, but I know what the note names are. Okay, hang on a second. I got some people hanging over here. First of all, Tony, what's going on, my friend? Ready for the knowledge bombs. 60 is the new 40. Come on, my man. All right, Emmanuel, what's going on? Hi, Vinny. Hello, Emmanuel. How you doing? Welcome to the Doppler'S Gear Garage. That is funny. So what happened was a week ago today, I dropped a new Tonex video. Hang on a second. So, so there was this funny. So there's another video in the works, which is going to be Tonex 1. I guess we're going to call it Tonex 3. But my buddy Brian Wall from Worship Tutorial sent me these over, and in kind of part of the promo material for the Tonex 1 Joe Satriani limited edition, there's a shot of like 4 Tonex 1 Joe Satriani limited editions on one pedal board. And I was like, so I'm going to put together a pedal board using these 3 Tonex 1s. One that's going to be used for the front end effects, the other that's going to be using for just the amps, and then the other is going to be for the time-based effects at the end of the chain. And so basically the way it'll run is each one will basically be in A-B mode, so you can switch between 2 different front-end effects or 2 different presets of front-end effects, 2 different amp and/or amp presets, and then at the end 2 different effect presets. So it's going to be a lot of fun. In any case, Emmanuel showed up on the last video and commented that he thought it because one of the things that I've been messing with ever so slightly is messing with the thumbnails. The idea of having you doing something with holding your guitar or whatever allows people to see the thumbnail. My guess is Emmanuel saw the thumbnail, like, it's not Vinnie Moore. So the funny thing is that, as some of you might have known, I had the privilege of touring with Michael Schenker in 2005. Was that 20 years ago? It was actually about 2008. But Michael said, you kind of look like Vinny, which was kind of funny. So in any case, Emmanuel and I got to know each other on YouTube, which is where he's coming in from now. So welcome. Great to see you. Hence the hi, Vinny, which I just love. So awesome. Brett, good morning. Great to see you. Terry, hello. James, hello. Appreciate the check-in. Great to see you. Bonita Pope, good morning. Hello, hello. Great to see you. Thanks so much. Okay, Spencer, hey, welcome back, my friend. You've been missed. Okay, awesome. There we are. Got it. I was like trying to figure out who it was, and I was like, I should have seen the hair and known. All right. So as it relates to you when you were playing, there are shapes, right? And shapes are awesome because it allows us to... Oh, hang on a second. Speedy, what's going on? I have to be careful because there could be some Kiss fans in the house. How many of you remember the Vinnie Vincent invasion? How many of you actually saw MTV when they played music or music videos? All right. So the deal is we're working on developing the ability to explore the neck and expand our ideas, because I would have to say that I already know the answer to this question, is that pretty much everybody that plays guitar eventually kind of gets stuck in a series of walls that kind of contain where they're at on their fingerboard for a range of reasons. The most common one for intermediate players is that they play some lick that is so what happens when I play that G note and I play it over the A bass note? That's it. So I'm just kind of droning a G there on the low string. Hitting the minor pentatonic there, but... Well, there I went to the B flat. So that B flat is a chord tone of that G minor triad that makes the G minor pentatonic. That's the minor part. And so I can hit either that. So the note that's one of the resolution notes over G don't sound so good over A. Same with the B flat. So we have to know that it's a very good probability. Now, this is one of the interesting things. I did a little bit of math with the minor pentatonic. If you took... You're back. Oh, there we go. If you took the minor pentatonic and looked at its formula, which take my word for it. Well, actually, hang on a second. So if we took the G major scale, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, which we could also think of as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. And we took the first, third, fourth, fifth, and seventh notes, and we took the 3, and we flat it. And we take the 7 and we flat that. That gives us, instead of 1, 3, 4, 5, 1, 3, 4, 5, 7, 1, it gives us 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7, 1. And off starts to sound like the minor pentatonic. Now, somebody out there is thinking, or not thinking, but is wondering, but maybe not wondering it out loud. Why do we know when and where that's going to be a B flat versus an A sharp? And this is really, really important, kind of the bare bones, nuts and bolts parts of how the major scale works. If we jump back to the G major scale, I'm going to play it on the high. No, I'm going to play it here. the largest distance between any two adjacent notes that are next door to each other is a whole step. And the smallest distance is a half step. So if you play a distance that's larger than that, you got to have at least one placeholder note, if you will, in between. That is, say, if we go from here and leave that middle note, that's a major third, and that's going to be G, and that's going to be B. If we go from here to here, that's A and C, and we got that little B note in between. So the deal is, if we go from here, that's G, A, B, and that's G, A, B flat, or G, A flat, B flat, depending on what mode you're potentially playing at G. That is to say, if instead of going a half step or a whole step, which would be respectively G and A flat, or G and A, and that would be a 1 and a flat 2, or a 1 and a 2. If we go a step and a half, that is either a step and a half or a half and a step, which means if this is G, this note is an A or A flat, and this note is some sort of B. In this case, it's a B flat. So that is to say, if you go a step and a half, it's got to have some middle placeholder note in between. So, or if you go 2 whole steps, same sort of deal. So if this, in this case, if we got G and we're playing a note that's 2 whole steps above, that's B. If it's G and we're playing a note that's a step and a half or a half and a step, that's a B flat. All right, so the G minor pentatonic is G, B flat, C, D, F, G. So once we calculate those notes, it allows us to be able to do a bunch of really cool things. We can begin to go, okay, well, if it goes G, B flat, C, D, F, G like that, I can probably go G, B flat, C, D, F, G like that. And I can pick it up from the C note, D, F, G, B flat, C, and from the F note, F, G, B flat, C, D, F, and from the B flat, C, D, F, G, B flat, and from the D, F, G, B flat, C, D, from the G, B flat, C, D, F, G. And that means that then, kind of like you saw me do a minute ago, where we took the key of D major and went D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D, and went G, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G, and we can do the same thing with the pentatonic, and that's where it gets pretty groovy. It becomes helpful, but not totally necessary, to know how those notes that make up the shape are functioning. Operative word being functioning. Hey, Matt King, hang on a second. Let's everybody... Sorry. Besides botching happy birthday, Matt. Right, it starts from the 5. Happy birthday, my man. It was Matt's birthday yesterday. Welcome, my friend. I hope you had a scrumptiously cake-filled birthday, filled with joy and guitars and family and all the cool things that make birthdays cool. Sorry for calling you out, but not really. All right, so Matt is a person that's very skilled in terms of note names, scale degree numbers, and is an awesome guitar player. So this is a conversation we frequently have. It's kind of like, this balance between the shape and how things are functioning. So the deal is, as you begin to kind of slice and dice this, the challenge for most of us who are pentatonic players, a minute ago I talked about kind of playing the G note and not knowing why it doesn't sound so good over A, because nobody explained to us, like, hey, look, if we were playing over what I would call the tonic right now. And technically I shouldn't have played that flat stuff, so I played... So that little G minor triad thing. So I'm outlining, in this particular case, I'm actually outlining G Dorian. Also adding the flat 5. Try that Benedict. There we go. important to mention. So the deal is, understanding how things are working means that over that A chord, and this is what I started to talk about before, I did a little bit of the math. So in this particular case, I've outlined G Dorian. Over which I can play the G minor pentatonic. And in turn, then I can begin to kind of go, well, okay, if it's G Dorian, take my word for it, the notes are going to be G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F, and G. So as it turns out, for every single one of the chords that you could play as it relates to that, one or more of the notes of the pentatonic will fit over that. So let's just say I'm going to be going between this, that G minor 7 and that A minor 7, and the notes of that G minor 7 are G, B flat, D, and F, and the notes of that A minor 7 are A, C, E, and G, and that tuner is dead. Well, technically the battery is dead. I may have to harvest one from a different instrument. We'll just hang like this for a minute. All right, so the deal is, well, when we're playing that A minor 7, the notes are A, C, E, and G. Well, if I think about the notes of a G minor pentatonic as G, B flat, C, D, F, G, is there an A note? No. Is there a C note? Yes. And is there an E note? No. But we do have that C. So we can... I'm just rocking between the G and the bass and the A and the bass note. So as it turns out, every single one of the places that you can play a chord diatonically for any of the modes that you might stick the minor pentatonic on top of, one or more of the chord tones are found in the minor pentatonic. So this is where knowing the note names actually becomes really valuable, because you can get and go, oh, all right, A, C, E, G. Okay. As it turns out, the flat 7. So let me talk about that for a quick second. Somebody went, what about the G? Matt and I had this conversation the other day. Not the note that I necessarily want to resolve to, even though technically it's in that A minor 7 chord and it is in the G minor pentatonic. Not really the happy note. And also, but if we kind of go like this, just kind of go, maybe that's not working so well as much happier, right? So the idea of being able to know by ear which ones are good to resolve to is obviously the best thing to do. But for those of us who don't intuitively hear which chord tones out of the minor pentatonic fit with which chords, this is where we're doing a little bit of the heavy lifting and going, okay, if I take this chord and I just reduce it to the triad, let's forget that I'm playing a minor 7, A, C, and E, all right? So then B flat, D, F. So, well, there's a B flat, D, and an F. Holy cow, all three of those notes are in there. So on and so forth. So as we get to this chord, for example, B flat. You all of a sudden have lots to work with in terms of where you can resolve. And your ear will get you there, but the idea is to kind of front load it a little bit. So you start training your ear and your brain and your fingers to kind of go, hey, over that B flat major chord, I've got a B flat, D, and an F, and those are all found in here. There's our B flat, D, and an F. And those are great notes to resolve to over that chord, right? When it comes back to the G, we then come, or I should say the G minor 7 chord. We can resolve to the G, the B flat, or the D. And this is where having a knowledge of this becomes valuable. Now, as it turns out, you can also think of all this stuff as just one flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7, 1. And there is a lot of value in that. where if I can track that, that's 1, flat 3, and that's a minor third in there, and there's flat 3, 4, major second, 4, 5, major second, 5, flat 7, minor third, between the 5 and the flat 7, and the flat 7 to 1, major second. That can also be another way to track it, but it's not quite as accurate as being able to go, hey, I'm at G aiming for a B flat, aiming for a C, aiming for a D, aiming for an F, aiming for a G. So the one question one might ask is like, well, how do you get there? Well, you just practice, first of all, sing it, in my opinion, linearly. G, B. That's why I kind of headed away from going back to the high E string. G, B flat, C, D, F, G, G, B flat, C, D, F, G. One of the other convenient things is the first 2 notes, the second 2 notes, third 3 notes, next 4 notes, next 2 notes rather, so on and so forth. So you can, I took the first 2 notes, the second 2 notes, third 2 notes, fourth 2 notes. Sorry, I knew that was a minor third. And we're back to the G and the B flat again. So that way you can kind of begin to go, all right, G, B flat, C, D, F, G, B flat, C. Sorry, I knew that was B flat C because it's down an octave on that string. And then we got our D to our F and our G to our B flat. G, B flat, C, D, F, G, B flat, C, D, F, G, B flat. That's the same as going G, B flat, C, D, F, G, G, F, D, C, B flat, G. But we're just going G, B flat, C, D, F, G, and it just repeats. B flat, C, D, F, G, B flat, G, F, D, C, B flat, G, F, D, C, B flat, G. And once you get comfortable with that, you get comfortable with it. And you know that's a B flat and that's an F. That's a D. That's going to be on my G, B flat, and my C bending my D. Where it begins to get fun is what we did with the D major scale. We start to take and start pairing the pattern. And start grouping together. Now that note is the G, so you can just begin to work different sequences together. All right. Let me see if there's John. What's going on, my man? How you doing? Great to see you. Thank you so much. Appreciate the kind words. Having some fun. Hello, Zach. Good morning to you. All right. Hey, you know what time it is? It is time to. That's right. Raise them up. All right. So I am in kind of sunny Northern California, and I'm having my last little bit of my Pete's and my Optavia shake. Where you at? What you drinking? Gosh darn it. All right. Okay, hang on a second. Here we go. What's the signal path? Hey. So the crazy thing is, although it's not this one, it is this one. So this is the Joe Satriani. Well, it's a Tone X1 Joe Satriani limited edition, and everything is basically playing out of a pedal this size. Like, how's that even possible? First of all, I'm a huge fan of all things modeling. I'm a huge fan of pretty much all guitar gear. I think I've said before, I'm kind of like a kid with a puppy. Like, if it's a puppy and I'm on my way home and I find it, Albert, what's going on? There we go. The cloudy side of the bay. Hold on, let me bring that in here. I'll honor that. Bay Area Peach. There we go. Make sure that doesn't. All right. So hang on. Let me back up a step. Kramer model year. Okay. I love this. Good. All right. So as I mentioned earlier, this is Doppler's Gear Garage, and what we also love to do is geek out on gear. So this is basically should be a 2025, maybe a 2024 Kramer SM1. So this is supposed to be a coil split switch, but the crazy thing is it doesn't really buzz in the split position. So I'm thinking that the literature's wrong, because in theory, if it's a coil split, that is to say it splits the coil and you only go to one coil. In theory, in the one coil / single coil position, it should buzz with this much gain, and it doesn't. So I believe this is a series parallel switch, and then it's got this 5-way switch, obviously tone and volume. The only thing, if I'm brutally honest, I love this guitar, but the taper on the volume pot, I'm going to change this out. And I actually, they say that it's got yeah, you can hear it. It's got a high pass filter in there, but because the taper ain't so taperous, you lose that ability to roll it back to like 3, and it cleans up a whole bunch. Sorry, for those of you who don't know, one of the things you can do is you can have what's called a high pass filter, and the name is a little off-putting at first because you think about a high pass filter, but if you think about it logically, the highs pass through. So they also, the funny thing is they sometimes call it a treble cut filter, which is actually really misleading, because what it really means is they add the trebles cutting. But what's happening is that it's actually cutting out the low frequencies. It's filtering them out with a this little, it's measured in picofarads. This little device that they stick in there. And basically when you roll off the volume control, it brightens up because it cuts the bass and it cuts the muddiness of the frequency, which is great when you're playing with something that's got some distortion like this. However, the taper on this pot, it's the one thing that I'm not down with this guitar, but I love this guitar. The funny thing is the Flying V has been sitting over there because it's about to go in for surgery. And actually, this guitar was a huge part of that. So this is a Duncan, actually, this is the Duncan JB, Jeff Beck, and these are cool rails. And traditionally, I'm not a big fan of rails because they can be a little bright sometimes, especially in the middle of the But these sound great, hence cool rails as opposed to, well, hot rails or bright rails. So they're a little bit more tame, and they work really well as you go from the bridge all the way. And it's just a great guitar. So I've been super, super, super impressed. The funny thing is, we have all these preconceived notions. First of all, let me say hello to Mike Rand. Oh, wait, hold on. Kevin Wayne Carr, good morning. You know, I finally unpacked. Hold on. There we go. Let's see if I can hit the right button. Hang on a second. I need to jump back in. And first of all, let me do the greetings here. Sonny, good morning, my dear friend. Hello, hello, hello. Let's see. Brad, hello, my friend. Great to see you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Curious, do I have any of my axes set up with the treble bleeds? That is kind of something. The funny thing is that the Flying V, I actually don't think we set that up on there, but there are a couple of things that this guitar has kind of influenced me on. So I'm blatantly going to add whatever this is doing here. I think it's a series parallel switch, really. We're going to add that on that guitar. But on Tuesday, I take that guitar in and I get an actual full floating Floyd Rose put on that. So we're going to route the back. I've just been having too much. And the ability to take fully rock that tremolo up and down on these notes. It's just too much fun. So it's one of the main reasons I've been spending so much time on this guitar. The other reason is that it's very cool. Hello, Griffin. Good morning to you. So it's gonna get the Floyd. We're gonna figure out where we're gonna install the switch. We're gonna double check if there is not a high pass filter or a treble bleed circuit and basically means the treble bleeds through and the bass gets cut out, and basically it means that as you play with distortion again, and you bring the volume down, it filters out the low, kind of muddier frequencies and gives you. Again, the only thing I don't like about this guitar, and you can hear, I think there was just something wrong with this pot. Because I'm turning it maybe 1/10 of the way, and nothing, and then a little bit of variation. So, in any case, but getting back to what I started to say before I interrupted myself, I've never really been a big fan of neck through bodies because of some reason I invented in my mind. I missed the way the sound of the bolt-on neck and blah, 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 blah. And this guitar showed up, and I spent a bunch of time playing, and I kind of went, it's a neck through body. And, and I kind of went, huh. And all the reasons that I invented in my mind kind of slipped away. And I'm like, you know what? I really love this guitar. So, there we go. JB, and the JB in the bridge. Thank you, Zach. Hang on, you had something up here. So, G minor pentatonic scale is a 7-note scale consisting of the notes G, A, B flat. Okay, so, there we go. Okay, so all right, so. Backing up a couple of steps, so to speak. So this whole note name and scale degree number thing. When we first learned the pentatonic, if I want to play an A, B flat, C. Sorry, I guess I ended up in B. A, B flat, B. Thank you. And this will be C. I'm kind of playing a mixo pentatonic. Point being is you can move it around and not have to think about any of that stuff, which is great. However, as you're playing this, if I think about the key of C major, and I think about it's 1, 3, 5, C, D, E, F, G, C, E, G. That's an E flat. And that's an E natural. That's my C, E, G. So the ability to recognize where your 1, 3s, and 5s are, and then kind of mess around them. If you know that C, E, and G, then that's C, E, flat, and G. So the deal is, there's a strange thing about blending the modes in the pentatonic, but as we're kind of playing blues, if I do it well, you can hear me outline and change. And there what I'm doing is I'm using a combination of the triad as well as the 7 chord. For C, F, and G. I love that. F and G, dude, F and G. The other thing about that, you use kind of the what I call the mixo octatonic scale. What in the world? Basically, that's 1, 2, flat 3, 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7, and 1. It's really taking the minor pentatonic, which is 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7, and the Mixolydian scale, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7, and combining. The deal is, though, if you play the flat 3 and go to the natural 3, once you've kind of created that resolution, every time you play the flat 3 again, you have to go to the natural 3, so long as you're playing over that, if you will, 1 chord, which really isn't a 1 chord at all. It's a 5 chord. Technically, this is 5, and 5, and 5. All right, so in terms of just the straight modes, Dorian's got a flat 3 and flat 7. Phrygian's got a flat 2, 3, 6, and 7, and minor's got a flat 3, 6, and 7. Phrygian's got a flat 2, 3, 6, and 7. The point being the minor pentatonic was 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7, fits over Dorian, Phrygian, and minor. So this is where people get a little bit... So your comment there, Zach, about the minor scale, first of all, you can absolutely, and this is one of the places, and I'm not saying this is what you're saying, let's take the key of A minor. So I'm going to play A natural minor. So that's all a bunch of A, C, B, D, E, and Fs. Again, this is really why it's helpful, although you can recognize the sequence. If I were to take A major and just think about the sequence numerically, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. So minor would be 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, 1. Another way to think about this is the half steps occur between the 3 and the 4 and the 7 and the 1. All other notes that are adjacent to each other are a whole step apart. So if the minor scale has a flat 3, that means instead of going from the 2 to 3 being a major second, it's going to be a minor second. But the distance now between the 3 and the 4, instead of being a minor second, becomes a major second. This stays the same. Now when we took the 6th note and lowered a half step, instead of going major second between the 5 and the 6, we went minor second between the 5 and the flat 6. And where this was the 7, it becomes a flat 7. So where we had a major second between the 6 and the 7, we have a major second between the flat 6 and the flat 7. Where we had a minor second between the 7 and the 1, we now have a major second. So things kind of got shifted downstream there, sort of. And so you can think of 1. So you can think of it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1 becomes 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, 1. So they're the numbers. So if you really well, but if you're able to go, hey, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, and A, B, C sharp becomes C, D, E, F sharp becomes F, and G sharp becomes G, now you can think of it as A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. So now I can aim, I'm going to think about thirds, I'm going to go from A to C, B to D. Sorry, I got to hit the right note. A to B, A to C, B to D, C to E, D to E, F, E to G, F to A, and D to B, and A to C. So that allowed me to... better map this, although I didn't do a great job of calling out the note names, but that's where the practice comes in. So a few years ago, I was teaching at one of the guitar camps, And it really occurred to me, I was like, well, what am I missing with the note names? And the most important thing I can say about them, hey, what's going on, Tom? Great to see you. So and I was going, well, what am I missing, if anything? And the difference between the first of all, the shape, nothing wrong with just memorizing what that shape. Looks and sounds like and feels like that tactile. I've got my eyes closed in case you can't tell. Because that's really been one of the things that I've been working on. I had a student decades ago. He said, should I practice this stuff without looking at the neck? And I was like, no, it's fine to look at the neck. What I realized I was missing is we have three primary modalities through which we learn. Visual, most guitar players see the notes on the neck, which is why you're seeing that shape spray painted on the neck. So there's a lot to be said about recognition of the shapes. There's also something called pattern recognition. Anybody that work with computers there know what I'm talking about. Seeing commonalities that occur at certain locations in the scale. That is to say, at my 1, 2, and flat 3, it's the same thing that happens at the 4, 5, and flat 6. And what happens to the 2, flat 3, and 4? It's the same thing that happens at the 5, flat 6, and flat 7. And you begin to see those shapes around there. All right. So the tactile thing, I've been working a lot with not looking at the neck, so I'm getting comfortable with really developing my sense of feeling the neck without looking at it. And that's tethered to taking the visualization of the shapes and then turning that into a kinesthetic sense. So there are three primary modalities: visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. So that sounds no. Yep. Hearing the right note. Na 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 na. Na na. I sang a natural 6 instead of flat 6. 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, 1. 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5. Not a natural 6, but a flat 6, flat 7, 1. I'm beginning to recognize the difference between them. So all those things are working together. So we want to kind of be getting that happening. But separate from that is the analytical ability to kind of go, well, what was that, right? So that is to say, my being able to spout off that the notes of A minor are A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, well, without an A note, in a sense, it's kind of meaningless. And being able to go 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, 1 without some point of reference is kind of its own thing. But when we marry all that stuff together is where this bit of information becomes very powerful, because then we can use that to direct all that traffic. And or have it kind of running in the background, so you can be thinking about, I don't know, if I'm playing in the key of A minor, the A, C, and the E become really valuable. The other part of this, kind of the moral of the story, Zach, I'm gonna give you some love in just a second. Being able to see those A, C, and E notes and different locations. That's right. Not so good with that minor third. So that knowledge that I was actually aiming for A, C's, and E's is really helpful, because one of the challenges that most of us have is we play the same stuff over and over in the same places. So you can begin to kind of go, hey, let me find A, C, and E in as many different places and in combinations that I can, like A, C, E, A, C, E, A, C, E. That just allows you to kind of go, okay, there it was. By the way, let me explain what I did there. I played it splayed across 3 strings. Splay is my new favorite term. Across, basically, we can think of that as 1, 1, 1, 1 and 2, and 2 and 1. A, C, E across 3 strings, A, C, and E across the 6 and then playing the flat 3 and the 5, that C and the E on the 5th string, both those notes, and then the 1 and the flat 3 on the 6th string, and the 5 on the 5th string. And that's a really neat way to kind of get used to just unboxing yourself and so on and so forth. All right, hang on a second. We got scale geekery going on. The minor pentatonic consists of G, B flat, C, D, F. Come on, it's derived from the G. Okay, so so here's the thing, Zach. So I said something that was, hold on, let me get that in there. There we go. Gosh darn it. So this is, I'm really glad you said that. So you were not wrong, and I don't mean to call you out because this is really super important. I tell you what, Zach, let me see scroll wise. First of all, hang on, let me say hello to a couple of folks here. Good morning, Rafael. Buenos dias. Oh, I hope the power doesn't count out. Yes. Gib, hello. Great to see you, Gib. Always a pleasure. Look at that photo. And the Metallica guys like minor, but also Dorian with a flat 5. I digress. All right. We lost Don Mock. Don was brilliant. So for those of you who don't know, Don Mock was one of the OG GIT teachers. He was a brilliant musician. He was a big fan of Jan Hammer and the Mahavishnu Orchestra. He created basically this crazy guitar synth that sounded just like Jan Hammer. He was responsible for the founding of the school, or at least very early on. And he was a lovely guy, brilliant musician, and he lost his battle with cancer. Don, you will be missed. All right. So, Zach, there's nothing wrong with what you said. However, I didn't know that. So the thing is this, and it's a funny thing. So as I'm working on mapping out the notes for this pentatonic course, I was faced with actually starting to write a key signature because I was going to write out the G minor pentatonic. However, here's the problem. If I were to, kind of go, all right, if I'm thinking about G minor pentatonic, it's a 1, 3, 4, 5, flat 7, 1. But if we think about Dorian, 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7, 1, and Phrygian, flat 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, 1, and minor 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, 1, they all with the 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7, as in Dorian, Phrygian, and minor, support the minor pentatonic. So we have to be careful identifying which potential mode we're extracting the 1, flat 3, 4, 5, and flat 7 from. So you are absolutely correct. If I'm in the key of A minor, which I was a minute ago, I was playing the 1, flat 3, 4, 5, and flat 7 of A minor. However, if I'm in A Dorian, of course, you know the formula of the Dorian mode. So the deal is, until what's happening behind us is defined, we don't know which mode the minor pentatonic has taken its 5 tones from. So this is kind of one of the nuanced things that I realized. I actually, without defining, and as I'm kind of working on this course materials, until I define the relationship that you can strip, if you will, the pentatonic, minor pentatonic notes away from Dorian, Phrygian, or minor, or that they all 3 support it. If you don't have that kind of, which you do, that ability to go, oh right, yeah, got it. That's the 1, 3, 4, 5, 7 of Dorian and Phrygian and minor. It can be any of those 3 until we have enough information. We don't know which of those 3 it is. And yes, absolutely minor / natural minor is one of the 3 choices. But it means that we can't initially write a key signature if we haven't defined which of the 3 it was. So I thought, oh, this is really an interesting thing because I'm going to have to explain this to people. So it's a very interesting thing. Yeah, he was a really nice guy too. All right, so the deal is, what's neat about this is as we begin to think about the pentatonic being overlaid, there are a number of things at play here, which is, again, arguably the thing that people miss the most about the minor pentatonic is that 3 of the 5 notes are the 1 flat 3 and the 5. And so the thing about that, those notes are the resolution notes where the C and the F are actually really, 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 really important. Interesting. The funny thing is that I'm not a I never really had a great desire to play classical. Now as a kind of a grown adult, the interest is there, but the time to really dedicate it is not. There's a great jazz teacher here in the town that I live, Orinda, named Jack Eskridge, who taught so many amazing people, including my buddy Chuck Murray, who passed away a couple of weeks ago. But the thing is, I'm like, it's unfortunate that I can't take advantage of the ability to study with him, but I literally barely have enough time to practice things in the course curriculum I'm creating, and to study something that you don't have time to study is not really studying. It's wasting your time and money and the teacher's time. So the thing is, however, Segovia, left leg. And so I think we talked about this last week or the week before. If you take your guitar, hold it here, and kind of jut it out here as if it were going to be on your right leg, you'll feel the tension in your right shoulder. If you're not practicing with the guitar on your left leg and in turn when you stand up, that it's sitting at the same spot there, I'm going to encourage you to reconsider that. And the thing about this is that this allows us to have this nice classical hand position without it being kind of offset, because this little business right here really messes with the pinky bit of this. The other thing that if you're doing this and you're not intending to, don't. So this classical hand position of 1 finger per fret and that pinky is facing up the neck is something we want to have continuously as we move up the neck until we're doing something like... where we're bringing the thumb around the top of the neck, and generally the pinky is largely, although... Sorry, I heard it, so yeah, I've never really actually memorized that, but you get the idea. The pinky. All right, I digress. Seriously. But if we're wanting to get that classical hand position, and if you will, in the post-Yngwie era, where that articulation of the different fingers really matters, especially working with different arpeggios. You get getting that sort of articulation happening with the pinky. You got to get that thumb so it's down there, allowing you to have that stretch there, especially. Sorry. That's not the finger I want to use. Oh. You get the idea. The other thing is... So 4 notes per string, which is this old little deal. Or getting that pentatonic 3 note per string. Matter of fact, Let's see here. Hang on. Let me just. All right, there we go. Zach, this is for you. So give me a G, B flat, C, D, F, G, B flat, and C on the high E string. Let me go. And 4 variations. Number 1, low to high, as in G, B flat, C, up and back down the neck. The top spot going to be played 2 times for the direction, going up the neck, and 2 times the direction going back down the neck. Then variation number 2 is going to go up high to low and down high to low. Then variation number 3 is going to go up low to high, as in G, B flat, C, and down high to low, C, B flat, G. And by everybody else, you're invited as well. Then the last one flips that around. So this is the hardest, because we ascend high to low, as in B, D, sorry, C, B flat, G. Holy cow, that's easy for you to say. Then we descend low to high, as in G, B flat, C. All together, that's this. Sorry, one more time. 3, 4. Got to get that last note. Okay, good. Okay, so there are a couple of interesting points. Rusty is a, although I don't see him very often, Rusty is a good friend. And amongst other things, Rusty and I see theory very, very, very similarly. Zach, I hope I didn't scare you off with my comment about the minor pentatonic and the minor scale. Like Zach pointed out, having a really good articulation of the formulas of each of these modes is really, really important. Dorian, flat 3, flat 7. Phrygian, flat 2, 3, 6, 7. Lydian, sharp 4. Mixed Lydian, flat 7. Minor, flat 3, 6, 7. Locrian, flat 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. Hello, Michael. Welcome aboard. Great to see you, my friend. All right. So then, in turn, if you want to take the 1, 3, 5 or 1, 3, 5, 7 of each mode, you just kind of rate each mode for whatever type of 1, 3, 5, and 7 it's got. And one of the things that Rusty and I have in common is that we basically like to work with what I refer to as parallel voicings. That is, say, taking that 1, 3, 5, 7 and 1 flat 3, 5, 7. Sorry, 1, 3, 5, 7, 1 flat 3, 5, flat 7, 1 flat 3, 5, flat 7, 1, 3, 5, 7, 1, 3, 5, flat 7, 1 flat 3, 5, flat 7, 1 flat 3, 5, flat 7, and 1, 3, 5, 7 of major, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, mixed Lydian, minor, Locrian, and major, and creating the 1, 7, 3, 5, and 1 flat 7, flat 3, 5, 1 flat 7, flat 3, 5, 1, 7, 3, 5, 1 flat 7, 3, 5, 1 flat 7, flat 3, 5, 1 flat 7, flat 3, 5, 5, and 1, 7, 3, 5. For each of those modes, creating what I refer to as diatonic parallel chord voicings. And there's actually not a lot of people that do that, which is unfortunate because it allows you to kind of build pretty much anything you want to and move it around. By being able to permutate, let's say, whatever numbers you're putting together. It's a great question. So the funny thing is, I'm a big proponent of embracing new. But there's a part of me that with that guitar I've really taken a lot of time before I decided to actually route out the back of the guitar to make it such that rather than a top-mounted FRX Floyd, it's actually going to be routed. So we're going to take a big chunk of wood out of here. It's going to make... The funny thing is I play this guitar, and I actually haven't played it for a couple of weeks. And in case you didn't hear, it's like I sit down, I'm like, oh, I know this guitar. But I know that having the ability to float the tremolo, it's just killing me. And it's the one thing, and I got to figure out where I'm going to put that switch and not poke myself with it. But the things that we do to our guitars, especially when they solve problems, make them betterer. I love that word. So and there, it's an interesting thing when I installed the on-off for the Floyd Rose. And this is the octave up for the, the on-off for the Sustainiac, and then the fundamental of the octave up. I really wanted to use push knobs. I hate being in the middle of a set and having to reach down and do the pull thing. But Gary Brower, my tech, was like, dude, and I've seen Mike Manning, rest in peace, Joe's old tech, open up a case, and I saw that the pot was literally broken in transit. So what happens if the case gets dropped? What will happen is it will break a push, which is my favorite, just like push to turn it on or off format. But Gary was like, don't do it. And when Gary says don't do it, I listen. So the thing is that I've got to find a place where I'm going to install the functionality to what I think is going to be series parallel that pickup. I also think this guitar, it sounds perfect, and it's going to be, but because we've already got Floyd metal at either end, it's not going to change the tone that much. And I've just got to have the floating tremolo, and then this guitar will be perfect. So to answer your question, the ability to have the floating tremolo is going to enable me to add the degree of subtlety to this instrument that I can do on this one. That's going to be a game changer for me. And the ability to pull up on all my favorite harmonics is also for me. And that guitar is, when I plug it in, is noticeably more muted in its sound. I was at a clinic, doing a clinic in Florida after one of the guitar camps, and I broke a string. And so they just kind of handed me a Gibson off the wall that was markedly brighter, and a couple of people said, oh, that guitar sounds much better. And it's an interesting thing what people perceive as sounding better versus just different. And they like the brightness of the other instruments. So I think it's going to get a little bit brighter. I think, and I'm just going to, interesting thing is like picking it up there. I was just going, you sure you're doing the right thing? There was another guitar that belonged to somebody that was there, that guitar was there, and I got a chance to play before and after the Floyd. Just, there was a V. And I was like, okay, it's going to be fine. So in terms of so I was asking, maybe I misanswered your question, but the changes of instruments add functionality and allow you to kind of get to, it's kind of like a spot on your back that you can't quite get to you got to get the back scratcher. With this, it's been an interesting thing. Every single one of these guitars charts a part of your journey. It's an interesting thing about this because this is my... has become my daily driver for practice down here. And one of the things that I'm working on, and it's an interesting thing, is this is one of the things that I have traditionally not been a fan about in terms of 24 fret neck guitars, is it takes the neckmost coil and brings it closer to the bridge. And so as an end result, the space between the bridge pickup and the middle coil, middle pickup, you should be able to visibly see that they should be, yeah, you can see that. They're closer together on this guitar here. And there are two byproducts of that. One, the spot where I can get my nail, because I'm kind of a glide on the body kind of guy. That's kind of how I get my, if you will, 1, 2, 3, 4. But that nail of my middle finger is, and then in turn the second, sorry, the ring finger, or the 1, 2, 3, third finger there. Seriously, that 1, 2, and then 3, 4. Those 4 bases of support. That's where my right hand, and then just keeping it nice and loose as I'm doing that. But that little spot there is very narrow, and it's a little closer to the bridge, which is interestingly enough, you hear more of the transient. But if I listen without the pick, it gets brighter as you get towards the bridge because you're close to the bridge. I mean, if you think about the neck pickup and the bridge pickup, noticeably brighter in the bridge. So this spot right here is not necessarily my favorite sounding point, and because it's closer to the bridge, it's that next little bit stiffer. You know, like when you're picking right over by the saddle there, the string is markedly stiffer, and literally just kind of moving about that much changes the tension of which you're hitting the string. But it's been an integral part of my journey of really working my right hand, because one of the things for the pentatonic course is getting people to be able to switch from 8th notes to 8th note triplets to 16th notes to 16th note triplets for each of the patterns up and down the neck for the 5 keys that the course is going to be based around. And I got to tell you, switching from the 16th note to the 16th note triplets, it's been a little bit of a journey. And, you know, one of my weaknesses has been that I'm in the process of really working hard to overcome is crossing the strings either with 2 notes on each string for the pentatonic or 3 notes on each string, and not doing... It's not as good as... versus... I'm getting there, but I'm not as loose and as total control as I want to be. Again, doing pairs. Very comfortable with that. But up and down. Just being totally smooth and totally rock solid. And by the way, when I practice that stuff, I practice it like am I around? Yeah, I'm on the right one. Okay, I'm gonna, where you set, you're there. Okay, I practice it like this. There is nothing on those notes. I'm going to turn up a little bit. Let's see. Oh, no, I'll turn up over there. Oh, there we go. Hang on. And I can tell I'm in the bridge position. Let me move up to number 4 position. It's purposely next to nothing to make those notes sound good. But one of the things I've had to overcome is getting that note right there not clipping. That string right there to that note right there. That upstroke, clipping that on the way from that upstroke to that downstroke there. And that's been a journey of its own, but I'm really trying to take every little thing that I'm doing that's like, oh, there's that, fix that. Okay, does Gary Brower route guitars? No, Gary, absolutely. I don't. Earlier, I made the analogy of people that kind of change oil and do all the stuff under the hood. I leave that to the professionals because they're professionals. My ear has changed over the years. I was a Gibson man for years. When I went back to music after my divorce, I bought a Strat. Now I wait for a telly to fall off a truck somewhere. Interesting. Here's the thing is I find myself, I'm all those players, and I get a chance to respond differently. I'm going to come back to your question in a moment, Zach, but I want to answer Emmanuel's question here. Not off topic, and I get myself off topic the entire time, so you're right on topic. I like Tonex. I was trying the demo these days. I have fallen in love with Tonex because it just kind of, it's literally a box. That was nothing breakable, by the way. This big that sits on my desktop, and I also, I've got Tonex pedal, and they're just great. And I've just been so impressed with how affordable the technology is for my students. I'm recommending to basically all my students that they get one so we can exchange tones and tracks, and it's gonna revolutionize so much about this. So it's not off topic, and honestly, the great thing is I'm trying to balance. I'm getting ready to this week. I'll be shooting a Badlander video. But I'm also trying to, there is a healthy, vibrant Tonex community. And by the way, let me just say, for anybody out there that hasn't checked out Tonex, this box is like $200. It's insane. Insane. It's insane. The quality of the sounds and the technology, it's a thing. There is, for those of us that are, and I shouldn't say those of us, for people that are not as tech savvy, there is a little bit of a learning curve. But besides that, once you kind of get inside the editor and kind of get comfortable with deep editing, because I came up with the HT500, and I've been working in deep editors for basically 20 years, right? So I'm so comfortable with it. I'm just kind of like, I look for the things that I do and develop my workflow based on past workflows that I have with different pieces of gear, and then adopt that for whatever technology I'm using. And the Tonex stuff, they had the benefit of being a little bit later to the party, and as an end result, they had a chance to take a look at what people were doing well and do a great job. All right, so in terms of the affecting guitar playing, the interesting thing is there are a couple of things that sooner than later I'm going to do a video on in Spencer, choosing a guitar. So one of the things is that I call this area right here on the back of the neck, kind of call that the hips of the guitar. I have a reasonably sized hand. It's not small, it's not large, kind of in between. And for me, if the hips on the neck, if you think about a C shape where it's kind of rounded versus potentially a D shape where the hips go from being rounded to a little bit more like that, what happens is I can't grab my Hendrix chords. And that's a thing for me. It also means that I'm always trying to find some spot to get comfortable on the neck, that there's wood right there that I can't get around. And so basically any guitar that's got that quote-unquote deep shape, and there's probably a more intelligent, maybe this is a deep, no, a narrow C will be a thinner neck. I need to find an accurate description for that. But basically it's where it's got shelves or hips that stick out. That shape for me is a no-go. If this guitar had that shape, the instrument would have been a no-go, but it's very comfortable for my left hand. Again, I think of that kind of that Hendrixy. If I can grab that chord, the guitar is probably a winner for me. And then the thing is, it's got reasonably thick frets, which for me is also a big deal because, and if we haven't talked about this much lately, I'm going to bring this up here a little bit. One of the important things to do, if possible, and chances are 50% of the people out there, nobody's ever said this, rather than being in the middle of the fret, you want to be at the upper edge of the fret. Why? Because that, first of all, makes the distance on bigger stretches smaller because you're at the upper edge of the fret. But most importantly, you can't make the note go sharp by pressing the string into the point past where it frets, and then it goes sharp. By the way, another thing, and I recently started teaching this to my students, is literally you only want to press it with enough tension that it just begins to fret. You don't need to give it any more tension than just the amount to fret. So one, be at the upper edge of the fret, and you don't have to press in hard. And this is one of the natural things that you got to divorce yourself from is that there is a tendency when you start to play faster with the right hand is to, one, start to tense up everywhere, and two, dig in with the left hand. So be conscious. As you begin to work with building your speed, not to tense up when you begin to play fast. So a good way to get there is just start off slowly. And gradually speed it up. It's focus on keeping loose. Another thing you can do, breathe in through the nose or the mouth is another way to just relax. And feel if you're starting to tense up, back off the metronome. Now, let me make sure that I like Tonex. I was trying the demo. I think what you're saying is that you like Tonex, but you're using the stock presets. Is that correct? Let me know. Okay. Picks using Dunlop Max Grip Nylon Jazz 3 carbon fiber, now much lighter than non-carbon. So less weight, less inertia. First of all, I love everything about that conversation. In this bag of tricks over here, I think that's it. There we go. So what is this bag? This bag is, I'm in the studio, or sometimes if I'm doing a demo for a particular piece of gear, and whatever pickup selection on whatever guitar into whatever piece of gear on whatever preset or whatever speaker I'm using, it's just a little pokey, I reach for a thinner pick. So it's an interesting thing because inertia, I've got a buddy that's a guitar tech, and he reached out about this kid that he's going to potentially send to me for lessons. Really great young player. And I kind of was trying to find the right word to describe him. And said, that kid has inertia. He said, that's exactly the right word. So basically, there's an interesting thing that happens with the right hand. And that's where this little bit of just kind of going, and I'm developing some nomenclature for metronome practice. So ramp ups are where you just start at a nice slow tempo, like 80 BPM. And you gradually bring it up. That was faster than 5 BPM, but the metronome app I use goes up in 5 BPM increments. And so those are ramp ups. So the idea is you're repeatedly taking it from a tempo that there's just total control and muscle memory, and then you're taking it up to your fastest speed comfortably, because most people have a tendency to really kind of fixate on kind of what their fastest speed after they've gotten all warmed up and they've been running the exercise for fill in the blank period of time. And there's and in turn that made me come up when I'm kind of, these are new terms, but what I call sit down tempos. That is to say, the tempo you could turn the metronome on and you could sit down cold and play that. That's really the top speed, and the idea of being able to find your sit down tempo and just go doing ramp ups to your sit down tempo. That's really where the majority of the work happens, because that's where you're getting this comfort of the left hand and the right hand being really relaxed. You're not making mistakes, and you're building that muscle memory. And then what you do is with your ramp ups, you keep pushing that top tempo faster and faster. And that's really where you take ground with that. That said, it's an interesting thing because there's certain speeds at which I go from, if you will, just pushing the pick to there's inertia. And the pick for me, I've been using Dunlop 1mm Tortex picks for longer than many of the people watching this have been alive. It's a great point. First of all, Matt King, who was on here earlier, he and I have been having this conversation about how much pick pokes out. One of the things that I've been kind of noticing is that if I'm not careful, this part of my finger will clip one of the strings. So I'm really getting madly anal retentive about this because I really want to own my technique. I'm like, and you know, as I'm getting ready to shoot video content, some of which is so naked that like any sort of noise, I'm like, all right, let me get this out of there and let me be able to share with other people. This is what I did. It doesn't always feel good. It doesn't always happen fast, but this is how you do it if you're so inclined. So the interesting thing is that for me personally, in the way my fingers are shaped, a jazz pick would be too small in my mind. Like I said, I had all sorts of reasons in my mind about neck through body. However, you know, the interesting, there is this point where you go from pushing the pick to there's an inertia that you get that once I'm at... That right there, there's an inertia. There's a certain bounce. It's kind of like when you snap your wrist with a baseball. It's more than you just throwing your arm. There's the inertia where you get. See how my hand bounces? It's not. I'm just doing that. There's a bounce back, and that bounce back is really an integral part of this. The other thing that I'm getting better at doing. If you watch that right there, there's a video that Joe Bonamassa did. We was talking about different styles a decade ago. But you can see him do his little twist with the right hand there. But I'm really trying to get rid of this little clipping. And that's been a bunch of work. So there are times that I will do a gentle little twist there to avoid that. In any case, all right, bring on the Badlander video. So the weight of the pick, I need to sit with that for a minute. And I need to you know, for me, more than the weight of the pick, I'm hyper conscious of the sound of the transient. So if I went to a pick of the same thickness but it was softer and or lighter or less firm, it's going to change the sound of the transient, which may or may not be a bad thing. I need to sit with that. That's a really great point, Zach. So I would get the Tonex one, but I'm going back to the Boss VG for the first ad was a VG8, 1993, with the Boss VG8. Oh, awesome. I have a VGA7 amplifier. If you've never checked one of those out, they are really, really cool. So congratulations. That sounds awesome. So I've tried sponsored picks by hot players. I've never stuck with any of them. I won't mention names. Ooh. Nasty. Okay. So, Emmanuel, you know, this is the whole thing is that thank you very much, my friend. And again, welcome. Great that we're hanging out here. Welcome to the family. So the deal is, the idea is that if you can kind of stick your hand up in the air, and that's the most natural motion for the wrist to move in. So if we can bring that down and then utilize this finger and this part of the hand, that allows us to build, if you will, like the four legs of a table, and then it's all happening from the wrist. And, you know, in many ways, most of us, what we do when we're playing rhythm, we don't go. But for some reason, when we start playing lead, we start incorporating what I call the windshield wiper versus. So literally. although there is a slightly different motion, that looseness that we have when we're playing rhythm, the idea is we bring it into our lead playing. And this is where, sitting with the metronome, I literally, it can be brutalizing as you're working on this, that, not getting that. Getting that nice and clean. And it's just it takes a certain amount of work, but it also starting off the metronome slowly, and then gradually building it up and getting nice and comfortable. The other thing is that per Zach's point. I've mentioned this here before, but it's well worth mentioning again. There are times that I have what I call hotel room practice, where I'll wake up and I'll be out kind of somewhere doing a gig somewhere, and I'll kind of wake up like more like 3 or 4 in the morning. And I'm a bit of a practice fanatic, so I'll wake up and I'll find a little spot. Quite often, Melissa, my wife, is there, so I have to kind of create some little quiet area in the room. But I will sit there and practice. And there was one trip where I was in Texas and she wasn't there. And I just started going. And I started hitting versus loosening up and playing as light with my right hand as I could. And since then, I've really focused on playing probably 1/3 of the volume, a third to a half of the volume. And one of the things that I noticed, this tension right here, that when I needed that to get that is say if you that versus that, you can hear how light that is versus now there are times I want to be able to, but don't know how else to say this. White people, people of color, it's one of the biggest things that makes quote-unquote white funk players really stand out is they have a tendency to hit a lot harder than their ethnic counterparts. And it's one of the things that I'm very conscious of. At the same time, when I think about kind of, if you will, the Billie Jean kind of Steve Lukather, he's got some spank on that. He's not going. Let's see, let me hit that light. That's not to say that ethnic funk players don't sometimes dig in, but it is a psychology where, some folks just aren't in a hurry to get the job done, and it translates to everything across the board. So as I've been kind of analyzing my funk playing, the other thing is when you're super loose, to get a little bit more swing in there and make it feel looser versus. But a big part of me is that's where I live as a player. So I'm kind of balancing the two out, kind of going, all right, they're different parts of my expression as a player, and I'm kind of fine with both of them. But it's nice to have kind of the ability to kind of go, They're two different things. Want to live there. And this is the deal. This is that, the... if you think about Corey and you think about Steve Lukather, they're both great players. They're both great funk players. But if you think about Prince, who really arguably... think about Controversy or any of those kind of classic, Prince really, that kind of whole, that was his whole thing, and that was super light. Super light with the right hand side. And that's where, White Boy Funk, I'm not talking about the other two guys I just mentioned, but way too much. Where's this? You might hear the... First of all, but Prince, you got to understand, just like Hendrix, never plays the same thing the same way. And so you just kind of go, all right, which one of these 16 different ways that he played this am I going to play it that's going to be the signature one, right? And arguably, whatever he might have played over the first verse or the first chorus is the way to get there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I got some lessons to prep for. It has been a pleasure hanging out. I hope, again, my favorite phrase, Melissa and I were talking about this week. My goal is to protect and serve. One, protect your dollars such that whatever pieces of gear you buy, I hopefully can play some role in either answering questions that maybe you didn't have a place to ask them, and do so with enough depth of field that if I don't know, I'm going to say I don't know, and if I do know, I'm going to give you my opinion and say it's my opinion. Then also around the playing side, serving you, helping, put different ideas underneath your fingertips. Thank you, Doug. Patiently waiting for the new course you're developing. How much longer? That's a great question. So once I switched from, first of all, thank you, my dear friend. Once I switched from 15-minute fundamentals, short version is 15-minute fundamentals is still in process, but the reality is there's going to be a minimum of 5 key areas of study, each of which is kind of gets a day of the week and or has a 15-minute workout. Since the goal is, look, if you've only got 15 minutes, just sit down and go through this list of stuff. Pentatonic, modes, triad chords, 7 chords, just like enough stuff so that you don't feel like you're falling back down the hill, right? But at the same time, there's got to be enough for each of those different foci that there's depth of field, and generally such that there's kind of 3 layers. There's kind of like the entry layer, and once you kind of get past that, well, what's the next thing I'm going to lift up to, so on and so forth. Albert, thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Brad, thank you. I love all caps. Thanks for the knowledge, sir. I hope your Melissa and the Doppelgangers have a great week. Thank you so much. Excellent. Thank you very much, Raphael. I much appreciate it. So the deal is that each one of these things, there are, I watched the other teachers in the space pretty closely. I've subscribed to a number of different courses because I want to see, first of all, I'm always looking for great information. Second of all, I'm always wanting to see how other people are presenting the pentatonic. And last but not least, I also am trying to develop, how much is enough? And most of the time, I'm kind of amazed at how much material the other teachers can get out there. Now, I'm in the midst of working on wrapping up 2 albums, re-releasing my first album, doing a massive Spotify course where every Wednesday for an hour and a half, I'm getting my brain filled on pre-release strategy and post-release strategy for singles and albums on Spotify. My brain's not about to explode, but if there was a season in which it were, this would be it. Also, although I didn't drop one today, dropping a YouTube video, Saturday seems to be the money day. And it just, Emmanuel, thank you first of all for joining us. Emmanuel is a new YouTube friend. And those videos, what's great about them is it allows me to connect, again, protect and serve, help other people around a piece of gear in some way, or at least allow them to kind of go, this was a good choice, and become part of their community, and vice versa. It's a great thing. It's really cool. And the people in the Tonex world have been awesome, as is the case with the people in the Boogie world. Albert, hello. So the thing is that with the pentatonic, I'm really trying to take a very holistic approach where I'm going, look, what are all the things that you might potentially want to know and want to be able to do with the pentatonic, including the things that you might not know that you want to do. So that means that there's going to be, and I found a new tool that I don't know if I'm going to use it, but it's a scale diagramming vehicle that I was able to map out the note names and the scale degree numbers and the shapes with relative ease up and down the neck. Hey, you know what? I've got a question. Awesome. Thank you, Emmanuel. Much appreciated. And like I said, welcome. Pleasure to have you here. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Mike, thank you. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So back in the day, if you think about a chord diagram, they're normally written like this, right? So you kind of seeing 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you would see the shape kind of written there with dots and finger numbers. Generally speaking, I'm seeing scale shapes written horizontally, where if I look at a chord book, the chords are still written vertically. I'm kind of curious where, if anybody has any thoughts about that, and if you can, drop that down in the chat. Because generally speaking, awesome, Adam, thanks so much, really appreciate it. And ditto on the great weekend. But the scale diagramming stuff seems to be, like this. But it's very strange to have any chords written like that and scales written like that. And I've been thinking about this. In any case, as I've been diagramming this out, again, figuring out the pathway to walk people through the pentatonic, because in many ways, I'm going to be templating things that I'm doing with the pentatonic in 15-minute fundamentals. And I always appreciate the feedback, by the way. But the other thing is like, how do you make it such that people don't just kind of sit with it for a couple weeks or, a couple of hours and kind of go, oh, okay, I'll come back to it, as opposed to like, oh man, this is going to revolutionize my playing, and create enough layers such that the people that just want to come in and learn the patterns, they just want to learn the shapes, have at it. Because the shapes are a huge part of it. But those that actually want to learn the theory and the note names behind that also create a bigger picture. And presenting that in a holistic way and making sure that it goes deep enough and that I'm able to actually execute all the different ideas that are in there, including minor pentatonic and groups of 4 notes. There's so much finger roll right there, finger roll. Those are flipping hard. And so I'm working on getting all these things up to speed. Hey, David, great to see you. Hello, hello, hello. Very cute photo, by the way. And then, in turn, I'm going to create a separate group of fingerings that I haven't done yet for the people that I absolutely do not want to use the pinky. And so that is to say, literally every single one of these patterns actually playing through, and so that, except for that one right there, that's the only one that's going to use the second finger. And then there's that guy has 3 first fingers. So in any case, it's been a really neat journey, but it actually is a lot of fun. However, the busting my own chops part is really really interesting. And the idea of getting people comfortable with playing G minor pentatonic, its patterns up and down the neck. A minor pentatonic, its patterns up and down the neck. C minor pentatonic, its patterns up and down the neck. D and E. So you're able to really be comfortable with these different patterns and how they all fit together up and down the neck. And if, in addition to just memorizing the shapes, going, what's the starting place? All right, get people just playing the shape of G, A, C, D, and E, and then going, all right, G, B flat, C, D, F, G, A, C, D, E, G, A, C, E flat, F, G, A, B flat, C, right? And then D, F, D, F, G, B flat, C, D, and then E, G, A, B, D, E. So you get really the ability to be literate, even if it's just at pattern number 1. So not everybody's going to want to know the note names for all those patterns up and down the neck. However, if at the point I introduce them to pattern number 1 at those different locations, go, look, even if you don't want to know the notes up and down the neck or what the scale degree numbers are, but you just want to see how the fingerings fit together. So say, for example, I'm playing D minor pentatonic. That's pattern number 1, bottom 3 strings. Pattern number 5, pattern number 4. And that's pattern number 3. But if you know that that's a D, and then there's the F, G, G, F, D, C, so on and so forth, then you're like, oh, okay, G, A, C, D, F, G. You got to begin to go, oh. It really helps kind of fill in some of the blanks as you're thinking about, hey, if I'm playing the D minor pentatonic, the resolution notes are D, F, A. So if I know that's A, D, and F, a little pork pie hat, and then there's, once you kind of know where those notes are and what they are, so it gives people the insight and just say, look, if you're wanting to go deeper, you can always come back to it. But the idea is creating a series of gateways where you're very intelligently, hopefully, by design, not out of intelligence, but by kind of like, I've got to create a way that people can feel comfortable with the smallest amount of information, but have enough information and they go, I actually understand why this is what it is. And the freedom to just memorize the patterns and not shame them into not knowing the note names and scale degree numbers, but also create an open door so that the point that they kind of go, I really want to know that, they can come back and all that stuff is built in there. It takes a certain amount of elasticity of kind of figuring out how I'm going to do this. But when I'm done, it's going to be something that so much TLC and preparation went into. I think people are going to have a lovely time with it. Bust my chops for my next course. There we go. Thanks, Spencer. Always a pleasure, man. Great to see you back. My computer took the sound away, so I need to sign off. Very funny. In any case, thanks so much, everybody. Much love. Really appreciate the ability to protect and serve this community. And again, I'm so grateful, so thankful.